chance that we get. It's so hugely important for the future of our state. We also know that the message goes much farther when leaders within a community are shouting from the rooftops too. So to Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara, to Belvedere Mayor Chamberlain, to Rockford Public Schools teacher Mustafa Abdal, and all of the rest who are so involved in this effort, thank you for working to make sure that your region gets fully counted. And when I say fully counted, I mean it. I mean that the census isn't just about putting numbers on paper. It's about putting people who represent Illinois in Congress. It's about delivering resources to our schools and social services and workforce development programs and infrastructure. It's about getting good demographic data on who we are so that we have the knowledge to better build a path to where we need to go. That's why my administration is committed, by far the largest per person investment made in any state in the nation this year, to prepare and execute the census in Illinois. We're working with trusted messengers and grassroots community organizations to focus on personalized, targeted outreach, groups like, of course, the Region 1 Planning Council here in Northern Illinois. The stakes couldn't be higher. Based upon our 2010 count, the census count that was done just 10 years ago, Illinois today collects over $34 billion per year in federal funds. I want you to pay attention to the fact that $34 billion, I mean, that is an enormous amount of money. And when you have an undercount in an area, it means that less money is going to come to that area, not just to the state, but to the area that is undercounted. And that's why, just to give you an idea, 1% undercount for the state of Illinois in 2020 could result in the state losing over $195 million per year. And that adds up over 10 years, of course. The same zip codes that are impacted the worst by COVID-19, those that have been hurting for generations, are on track to be the most undercounted at a time when, frankly, we need full funding. On the whole, Rockford is running just behind the state in its census response rate. 65.5% response rate for Rockford versus 66.9% for the state. And that number ranges within Rockford. The Keith Creek neighborhood is currently seeing response rates below 35%. That we've got to change that. Mayor Chamberlain, we're seeing 73.1% from Belvedere, which is tremendous progress. But we want to make sure that all of our numbers are high, and especially we want to ensure that we're reaching our hard-to-count residents. Black and brown communities, both urban and rural communities generally, blended households, young children, and low-income families. And because of the president's threats to our immigrant families, there are an awful lot of concerns about the ability to properly count for immigrant communities too. I want to remind everybody that there is no citizen question on the census, and that for every body, every living person in the state of Illinois, that is a census number. It has nothing to do with voting capability, has nothing to do with citizenship. It's just how many people are in the state of Illinois. We need to count every single person. Let's be clear, this isn't a problem of personal accountability. Historically, the census has not been an accessible tool. It's left too many people locked out and left behind. It's on us to change that. It's been incredibly uplifting and inspiring to see so many Illinoisans taking to the streets to demand justice. So I need everyone to know, filling out the census is an act of engagement, an act of civic engagement so important to all of us, a demand to be fully heard and fully counted. The census is another way that we can get funds to build the equitable Illinois that we all want. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to a true census advocate, if there ever was one, and that's our Regional Planning Council Chairman and Belvedere City Mayor, Mike Chamberlain. Mike?
Morning, everybody. Everything the governor said is absolutely true. We can't have an undercount. It's very important that we share the message. And for Belvedere, we're very fortunate because we're running a very high average. And I want to thank a couple of people. First of all, Ivy Hood, who heads this up for the Regional Planning Commission. Thank you, Ivy. Gina Del Rose, who heads up the census work for the city of Belvedere. This is an ongoing attempt by Belvedere to do better than we did last time. You know, always raise the bar. So our churches are working hard to get the folks that come to church the information for the census. I want to congratulate the entire state because we're running above the national average. Our 5 counties are running above national averages. Everybody's doing pretty well, but there's a final push coming up, and that push is extraordinarily important. It's important that we engage all of our citizens. Belvedere is 36.5% minority, and we want to count everybody. And we have tried to figure out ways that we can engage people on street corners, we can engage people with radio broadcasts, we can engage people by getting on YouTube. So to everybody here, this is our job, and this is the most important job we have this summer, is to get the best count we can so that the dollars come flowing into this community to work on the real projects that we work on every day. Thank you very much, and it's indeed a great pleasure of mine to introduce Rockford Mayor Tom McNamara. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Chamberlain, and to Governor Pritzker. Just another tremendous thank you to you overall, just for your leadership that you've provided to the entire state. During pre-COVID times was pretty remarkable, but during COVID times, as we see the virus increasing across the country, we can thank you for your leadership in making really difficult decisions. And I would say I certainly don't understand the enormity of the pressures that you face, Governor, but I can tell you it does bring many of us solace knowing that you put the health of citizens first and foremost in every one of those decisions. So thank you. With that said, I'd also like to thank Mike Dunn, who's the Region 1 Planning Council Director, and for his tremendous work and his staff's work. As Mayor Chamberlain mentioned, Ivy Hood is leading the effort inside Region 1, and she's done a phenomenal job. City of Rockford has also dedicated staff to be part of the census count and to make sure that any person who calls Rockford home is counted. And that's important. Any person who calls Rockford home, who calls Winnebago County home, who calls the state of Illinois home, should be counted, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that we're reaching them and ensure that they are counted so that they're reflective in our data. I would also just like to say a tremendous thank you to the state of Illinois for the grants that they've been providing us. They've allowed us to do things such as TV and radio advertisement, billboard advertisement, getting out into neighborhoods and direct mail, translation services. The state of Illinois, as the governor mentioned, has put more dollars per person into the census, and we are seeing that here. Obviously, the city of Rockford is above national averages, but we still are behind state averages. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's incumbent not just on the paid staff, but that's incumbent on every single Rockfordian to ensure that they are filling out that census form. It takes you minutes and can have a tremendous long-lasting impact on our great community. It was mentioned that for every single person, we lose about every person that's not counted, we lose about $1,560 per year. That's $15,600 over the course of those 10 years. What should be noted is if we don't count people, that doesn't mean that we don't provide services to those individuals over the next 10 years. We have to make sure that every single person is counted in our community. And when you think about every single person counting, you think about someone who is a force of bringing our entire community together, and that's the gentleman I have the opportunity to call a friend and I get to introduce. This is someone who has helped the city of Rockford in translating documents. This is a person who has helped us connect with more residents who call Rockford home, and I think all Rockfordians benefit to have Mustafa Abdel as a community member. So Mustafa.
So, okay, so good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you so much for your leadership, our governor. Thank you so much, our mayor. Thank you so much for your help. Really, I would like to start with one simple, quick story. I am a teacher, and every year I start my math class asking my students why we should study math. And all of them, they said, Mister, the number and money. So, census is numbers. Our life is numbers. And it's fun. It's my school, my kids' school, your kids' school, public service, hospitals. It is our city, our state programs, it's our state public services. So we need to spend only 7 minutes. I need from you only 7 minutes to go online, fill up the application. Within this, from start March, I work with partner with the city of Rockford, with United Way, and with the other partners to host a few events. We host an event for the MAGR, the Muslim Association Group. We got about 600 families. They attended, and they asked 100 questions, and it was a very amazing event. We host an event for the African Congolese community, and it was a very successful one. We host another event for the Burmese Asian community. It was a very successful event. So we started the communication as a team, and we are continuing doing that. And I, myself and my team and many volunteers, we helped within a few months help bilingual families. About 788 families filled up the online application. Really, it took with us only 6 minutes for each application to do it. So I want from your side to promise me that once we are done, you will go home and use your phone and then fill up the application. I need only 6 minutes, and these 6 minutes are worth enough to invest in our state and our city and our county future. The second promise I want you to promise that once we're done with the conference, we need to sign in there saying that I pledge to be counted in 2020 U.S. Census. So after we finish, we will go there and sign in there. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help. Thank you so much. So now I will call Mr. Michael then. Yes, thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
So before we move on, I do want to thank a number of people that have supported the efforts for all of us in the region. Ivy Hood's been mentioned as a leader of this project, and she's put a tremendous amount of work on our staff in the last 6 months, as well as Denise Delanti. Thank you, Denise, for everything you've done. She's in the audience as well. Want to thank, we're very lucky to have Secretary Ho here today from IDHS, and want to recognize her, as well as members of our state delegation, Senator Stottleman. Very clearly it is Senator Stottleman who is here. I apologize, Senator. I very much apologize for that one. And want to also recognize Representative Maurice West. Both Senator Stottleman and Representative West have been on the front lines with us, having a lot of meetings with us, always taking our call, and I want to give both of those two gentlemen a tremendous amount of credit for being vested in this project. And so with that, and we'll stop before I make any more mistakes, I will welcome the governor back up to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
So I'll just repeat Stottleman. Happy to take any questions from members of the media. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Do you have any plans of expanding the eviction moratorium?
As you know, from the beginning, this has been a great concern of mine. Obviously, there are many, many people who have been ill affected by COVID-19 with the inability to pay their rent or mortgage payments, for that matter. And so we worked with the General Assembly, who did an amazing job using COVID-19 relief funds from the federal government to help us put much more money into mortgage relief and rent relief. So that's been going on throughout the COVID-19 crisis, the ability for people to apply for and get relief that way. I put in place a moratorium on rent. That's not true everywhere, but that's what we did in the state of Illinois, because it was so important that we make sure that people are able to remain in their homes. And in addition, we also have a moratorium on evictions. And so it's vitally important that we continue to support renters and people who own their homes who are unable to pay their mortgages. So as we look going into the next month, we're going to be evaluating whether the moratoriums that we put in place, the executive order that we put in place, should remain there. How much we're going to be talking about how much money we're providing and what the process is to make sure that people are able to get that money so they can pay their rent, back rent, as well as going forward. But the decisions haven't been made yet, and I just want to assure you that I'm very focused on it.
Governor,
Yes, sir.
announced a $1.5 million investment into 3 airports, including Quincy and Rockford. Can you comment about Illinois' dedication to maintaining these transportation hubs?
Well, as I think all of you know, I've been back to Rockford many, many times to support the airport, to live up to promises that were made in previous administrations, to make sure that we're delivering for Rockford. I want Rockford to be a hugely successful, it already is, frankly, and you're still the fastest growing cargo airport in the world, and I'm very proud to live in a state that has an airport that has that distinction. And I'm going to continue to support our infrastructure program. So if your question is, am I dedicated to the advancement of our air transportation as well as ground transportation, Senator Stottleman, I should say, was in my office time and time and time again advocating for transportation dollars for Rockford, making sure that we got train service, making sure that we're delivering for the airport. Same thing with Representative West. We entered office at the same time. He's been a tremendous advocate. I'm going to continue to support transportation needs right here. Any other questions? Yeah, thank you for asking. Listen, I have 2 kids, and I'm concerned not only that they get the proper education this fall, but also that they're safe and healthy. So we provided guidelines at the state level for all the schools. Every school is built differently. Every school has a different set of different teachers, numbers of paraprofessionals that work there, numbers of students. And not to mention on a square foot basis, how many people are in a building. So all that kind of has to be worked out at the local level. What cannot be compromised, and this is from every epidemiologist, every doctor that pays attention to infectious diseases and knows a lot about COVID-19, is we cannot compromise on the question of masks and distance. That is the number one thing that slows and even stops the spread of COVID-19. It's also, without masks, without distance, the number one thing that spreads it.
How about maybe issuing, it might be too late now, maybe next year, starting school earlier when the weather is nicer and they can be outdoors.
Oh, you're very unpopular with kids then. I'm kidding. But starting school earlier was the question. Could we do that? Look, again, we've left it up to school districts to make these decisions because every one of them is different. Their capability to do that is different. What we want to make sure is that there are options here. So we put a lot of money this summer and, frankly, even in the spring, to building up our e-learning resources. It's not nearly as good as in-person learning. There's no doubt. I mean, I think the experts have determined that. But having options is hugely important, particularly in this very uncertain world of a novel coronavirus. So, thank you all. Sorry. Yeah, sure.
Some school districts are now looking to do like that parent choice where they can choose if their kid goes back to school in the fall or if they do say remote learning. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's going to be true across the state. That look, there are different challenges. This fall is not going to be like any other fall from a school perspective that we've seen. It just isn't. Just like this pandemic is not something that we've seen in our lifetimes. And so we do have to have options. I just want to point out that, if a child is immunocompromised, right, they may be going to school. They may have been going to school before because there wasn't any danger before COVID-19, but now we know that immunocompromised children and adults are at risk. And so it will be important for parents to decide, I don't think that my child should go to school for that reason. There's another one, which is if you have an immunocompromised relative, grandparent, parent, other child in a home, you wouldn't want somebody going to school and carrying, even if they never get sick from it, but they can be a carrier, bringing it home to somebody who is immunocompromised. I'm just giving you those examples to point out that we have to have options this fall for people to either do it from home or go to school. Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.